experience, Mayaan Gordon. I feel like I have a million questions for you without even preparing a list, which I have like a tiny one in my head, but we'll just kind of let it come up organically. But I am curious to know, first and foremost, what Champion Empire is to you. And actually, no. First and foremost, I want to know how long you've been a glassblower, because that's the thing that I'm really fascinated by. We can talk about studio work and the labor of it and all of that, because I am also familiar with that life. So how long have you been glassblowing?
Yeah, I've been blowing glass for at least 5 years now. Once you start getting past like that year date, it's hard to remember where. So I don't know if it's 5 years, 5.5, or close to 6. I'm also just terrible with keeping track of time in general. But it's been really interesting, not only getting to understand like the artist's perspective and like what is that life and what are the unique challenges or obstacles that artists might face. But then also in terms of just like realizing my own creativity. And I think this is something so important in a message I love sharing with people. Like, I am not a creative person. You are not a creative person. We are all creative people. And people tell themselves so much of the time, I'm not creative. Maybe you're not practiced at using your creativity, but we all are creative. It's a function of our brain is creativity. So it's just been a cool experience, like unlocking my own creativity through glassblowing and then seeing how that translates to marketing and business and just like really every area of my life.
Yeah, I feel like you and I kind of, at least from my perception on the internet and the kind of back and forth we've had a little bit up until this point, are both a little bit of rare gems in the sense that we really understand that. What you just said, that creativity is a tool. Like, it's a function that we, just like logic, these are both things, we like make these things into identifiers of who we are. Oh, I took that one quiz that one time in 5th grade and it told me I'm a right brain person, so that's my category, that's what I do. It's like all of us have both sides of the brain. So I can express my creativity through a poem or through a printmaking experience, or even through like designing a website. And then I can use my logic to play chess, or to, I would even argue ballet takes logic just based off of like the positions. And that's a blend of both. So things like that, where in business, it's also needed. So I see the similarities between us, and I'm interested to pick your brain on all of your social media experience as well. But I'm most interested in what drives you as an individual, because I can tell you're someone that has a lot of drive and has a lot of passion and just like a good heart. And those people are hard to, for real. And those people are hard to come by. So whenever I meet one, I always am like open to listen and learn and just hear kind of what your story is like. So I know.
Absolutely. Yeah. So a lot of like, if I had to explain how I became the person I am today, or like who I am, what makes me Mayaan versus someone else, really stems from, and I think this is probably true for most of us human beings, that our childhood in the first, 15 to 20 years of our life have a pretty profound and like lasting impact on what we think, the possibilities that we believe are there for ourselves,
the limitations we set,
how we deal with obstacles and stress, like all of these different factors, because we grow up in these kind of incubated environments. And so for me, the simplest way I would describe that, like that juxtaposition between my earlier living experiences and now, would be from broken to whole. And not necessarily that
verbatim. I'm freaking out. Never heard.
Awesome. Not necessarily that I felt broken all the time, or like I would have called myself a depressed person, but in all of the moments in growing up where I wanted to have human connection that was really strong, where I wanted to be generous and kind, there was no clear way for me to do that. Or when I did, that it wasn't received the way I felt it was supposed to be received. And so even when I was trying to form those connections, they weren't being connected to on the other side. Not to blame anyone else. Like, I didn't know how to form those connections. No one taught me. It's not something we teach our kids unless naturally as parents, like, we're good at that. Which is why I think a lot of times you'll see social parents have really social children, and parents who are more secluded. Like, my parents are both scientists. And so they would work from, they'd drop us off at school and then they'd be at work till 6 p.m. in their lab. And then they'd come home and they didn't want to deal with like any of our BS as kids. They were like, be good kids, do your homework. We'll have dinner. Everyone goes to bed. No TV past, 8 p.m., like whatever the rules were. And so I felt this kind of empty brokenness of not being able to form that human connection for, I started feeling it when I was pretty young. I think growing up in the 90s, there was a lot still really, it still exists today, but it was really, really heavy in terms of girls being supposed to look, a certain way. And like, you're supposed to look like the magazine covers, the kind of body positivity stuff hadn't.
What year were you born?
I was born 1991.
Okay.
So the body positivity stuff hadn't really caught on the way.
It was like everything was heroin chic, and everyone on TV was.
Yes, everyone wanted straightened hair. Like, you were supposed to be blonde. Like, that was just, and so.
But not bleach blonde, natural blonde, everybody.
Yes, exactly. So very young, like I was made fun of by, different groups of people or different types of kids, mostly because I was different and stood out. I went to an almost all black middle school, 6th through 8th grade. And just, didn't know how to make friends with people who were so vastly different than me and didn't share almost any of the like childhood experiences that I had. I also grew up Orthodox Jewish. And so like, I knew how to make conversation around going to synagogue and like Jewish studies, but like, I didn't know anything about like when kids would talk about cable, the shows they watched on cable TV. Like, I didn't have cable. My family didn't have that. So like, I didn't even know how to get into those conversations because they're talking about like some TV show. And so I always felt kind of excluded. But then also like people in general, that the system wasn't set up to facilitate the type of connection that I was really interested in. And so it's just been kind of since I've been aware of that really in my teens. And it was like really, I think in your teens, you come into a state of self-awareness in general as a human being. And so like, as I came into that place, I just started, working on it and doing research online and, finding out ways that I could improve and get better at things that I wanted to get better at, whether that was like relationships and making friends, or whether that was making sales and making money. But I spent a lot of time on the internet, on my laptop, just like searching and researching and reading.
How do I do this life thing? How do I connect with people here?
Yeah.
No one's interested. Is it me? It's gotta be me. No, wait, it's not me. It's my outlook. And then everything changes.
And that's a really hard shift. I think that was like the hardest shift for me was realizing that the way I felt about people was not the way I was executing in an energy sense towards people, because I was scared. And it's really hard to be loving and compassionate when you're fearful.
It's like nearly impossible because they're totally different vibrations. And I mean, on a scientific level, like if you look at the log of certain energies, like they are different wavelengths. You can't exist in harmony and fear at the same time. Hi, Dimitri, and hi, everybody watching. If you guys have any questions for us, we are open to engaging with you. Drop a ha 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 if you laugh, or just little things like that.
Hey, Dimitri.
Hello, watching on YouTube. That's cool. I've been trying to get more people on my YouTube. And now that I feel like I am starting to understand what I'm even putting out there. Anywho, I do agree with a lot of what you just said, and it's interesting because in my life, I think it took me a little bit longer than my teen years to really understand that. But there were other things that I was beginning to look into, which gave me the foundation of seeing. Really, my wholeness journey has been in the past couple of years. even just last year, my intention for the year was, I set a 1-word intention because I realized around December 2019, I really realized in January of 2019 that I was lying to myself a lot. And I was like, what is this thing? It's not just me. We all do it. Why do we lie to ourselves? And so I started an art series of how I process the world. And I began my oil painting series for my series class called The Lies We Tell Ourselves. And I did 6 oil painting portraits of myself based off of poems that I wrote, processing my self-analyzation of the lies. I mean,
That's really fun. That's
really
super
fun.
cool.
But it was also really hard because it was my first introduction to really how hard this kind of, I hate when the way, like, it's good that it's becoming normalized, but it's like, I'm doing the work. It's like, no, but like, it's hard work. Yeah. It really is. It's hard work. And I realized in starting that hard work that I wrote down every single lie I realized I was telling myself. And I started asking my friends too, like in conversation, not assigning them homework, but just what are some lies that you tell yourself? And I would write down theirs too. And when they would come up more than once, I would circle them. I categorized them. I gave them themes. And I started to really understand the different ways that we lie to ourselves. And then I could start asking, why do we lie to ourselves? And it's this fall away from innocence. It's this worldliness that, you talked about the structure of the system and how it wasn't designed for us to communicate and connect authentically. And it's true. And it's designed in a way that makes us not think very deep often. And even just on a educational level, I mean, we don't really learn. We achieve and we have aptitude, and then we compare ourselves to one another based off of metrics and metrics alone. And we don't even know, we're so out of touch with, how do I feel about the life that I'm living? Is it valuable? Am I showing up to bring value to other people? And am I genuinely happy? Not just like in this moment, but once I die, am I going to be able to look back and be like, oh, wow, I'm amazed and marveling at what I did while I was here? Or are we going to be filled with regret? And I definitely don't. I'm like, what's the point of regret at all? We just should do the things that feel right to us. But it's harder. It's easier said than done. It's harder than that. But like once you break through, there is this pivotal change. And it's not just like, oh yeah, I'm whole, yeah, I'm good enough. Like, yeah, no, you should love yourself. But it's like, no, really, like I'm a whole person and I'm like actually good enough. And like just the fact that I woke up this morning is a gift, and I'm gonna make the absolute most out of it. And there's gonna be times that I'm really challenged, and I'm just gonna love myself through it. And that, like, once you really learn that lesson of wholeness, then there's a million other lessons to learn, but you get excited about all of them. Nothing's scary anymore. You can't be compassionate in fear.
Yeah, absolutely. I love everything you said there. And I would have to especially agree around like the thoughts in our head. And I think that that's such just a big thing that leads to everything, like is connected to everything else. And for me, another way I would describe the journey from like where I came from to where I am now was strengthening intentionally the voice inside of me that I would say is my voice. Mm-hmm. It's not reactive. It's an intentional voice that I've chosen to have. It is who I want to be. It's the thoughts that the me I want to become has, not the me I'm trying to evolve from. Mm-hmm. And then there's the negative voice that he's not there all the time, but he pops up whenever, let's say, challenges. I face challenges. Oh, you're not good enough. Oh, this, but it's always secondary now.
And it's fast. Have you noticed that? Like it layers on top of itself. Why did you do that? You're so stupid. It doesn't even sound like anything. It is noise. It's noise.
Yeah. but it's been a big transition from, if I think about, where I came from, that was the voice that lived in my head, and the stronger voice, or the voice that like I would associate
That's who I
myself with
was.
now,
That was me. That was my identity.
that part of me. But it was so quiet, and it didn't feel like it was my voice, because the other voice was so pervasive in my head of not being good enough. That even when I would achieve things, like even when I'd get, the A on the test, or, did well in the basketball game, none of those achievements made me feel like I was more complete or good enough. And I think that's a lot of place. I've heard this from a lot of high achievers, especially athletes, will get to this place where they're chasing achievements because the inside, without those achievements, they don't feel good enough. And like you're always trying to prove something, prove that you're good enough. And that's certainly, a good deal of how I felt in high school, was a combination of knowing deep inside that I was good enough, and like feeling that, but then also feeling this deep layer of not being good enough. And then this other layer of, okay, well, then I have to prove that I'm good enough, because without the proof, that other feeling might be true, even if I don't deeply inside me believe it. What if I'm wrong, right? We all have that voice and that doubt that says, what if I'm wrong to all the things I believe 1,000% in? And that voice is the one really that's wrong. And I think it's good for people to understand that every single person has that voice. It's just how strong is that voice at actually, getting us to listen, or how well have we been able to block it out as noise?
Absolutely. And a couple of things that, first of all, thank you for sharing that, because it's obviously vulnerable. And I'm glad that you're at a place where you're like, hear my story, because it can help, because it can. And I hope people that are listening are like, if they haven't figured this out and are kind of like, what are you talking about? Or if it's like, oh, I feel like I know, then I hope you start to pay attention, just to like reiterate, there's the voice that talks and there's the voice that listens. And we are the listening voice. The one that talks, we can construct what we say to ourselves. That's a little bit different.
Yep.
Because then we are managing the talking voice. But that means someone is managing it. Oh, Benatti has something to say. Intention, I think, should be the focus, why we do something. If our validation is anchored to things we didn't really intend to chase, say fame, the negative voice will slip in always. My opinions. Always has a really beautiful opinion, Benatti does. And, I think one thing I've been thinking about on that note is intention and action, though. Because one thing is that, like, I've been met with the mantra often by a person that has caused a lot of harm. They're like, intentions matter, intentions matter, intentions matter. And it's like, intentions do matter. Our actions matter equally as much. Are we acting in line with our intentions? And they both matter. And we all have caused harm, whether we like to admit it or not. So it's no judgment upon that person. It's just that experience taught me that lesson. So I think that intention absolutely is huge, and it's equally matched with action. So then, just really quick, the voice that talks, the voice that listens. And you had also talked about what if. And this is one of my favorite things to do with people once they're in that headspace of, what if I post on TikTok and nobody likes it and it's just the worst? What if I don't achieve that art piece, or don't make a good business, and all of these things that we like don't take action because we are in fear? Just playing the opposite soundtrack in your brain. What if, jumping on my bed literally and being like, what if I go to the moon? What if I, like, getting excited? Like, our bodies feel it cellularly. Like, we can actually control those messages and bring out so much good in ourselves if we do the voice tempering thing that you brought up, and just being like, which affect am I pouring into, and what's my choice in that? Am I gonna be negative, or am I gonna be positive? And we have a choice every moment. We can start over every single moment. Not to.
Yeah, no, Oh, go.
I was just gonna say also, not to take away, like you had said too, you wouldn't necessarily classify yourself at that point, even in your negatives, like I'm a depressed person. So not to take away from people who like struggle from mental health, but I have also personally struggled deeply from mental health. It runs in my or mental health issues. It runs in my family, and so I'm just saying, like, I have awakened to these things and dealt with a lot of deep traumas and difficulties in life. So it's not like I'm just being like, put a smile on your face and flip your frown. Like, I'm not just saying that. I'm saying it from my absolute truth. So I'm hoping it comes off in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I wanted to kind of touch on from what you were sharing was around kind of the concept of excitement or energy or amplifying our thoughts. Like we can temper certain voices, we can also amplify voices. And one of the things I've noticed that's a little bit different about how I amplify some of the voices in my head versus a lot of other people that I talk to, especially other like content creators or creative people, is they'll tell me, like, when I talk about, because I've got a lot of creative friends, and we all like to share like what we've got going on, because we've all got very like interesting lives and get to do interesting things. And so when kind of some of my friends will share with me, oh yeah, I get to go do this fun, exciting thing. I'm going to go shoot a video with this person I've really looked up to. And I like always try and hype them up. I'm like, oh my God, that's so exciting. Like, are you freaking out? Like, tell me more about it. Like, are you planning any other stuff? Like, sounds amazing. And they'll be like, yeah, I'm like really excited, but I'm not like getting too excited or like putting too much into it. And to me, that's like crazy. Like, why not enjoy it as much as you possibly can? You don't have to attach your future happiness to the outcome of it happening or not.
You really get it.
Personally, like anytime there's something coming up in the future. So for example, I've got a trip scheduled to go to Las Vegas for early February this next month. And I'm super excited. I like think about it. I think about the fun things I'm going to do. I talk about it with my husband. Now, if it doesn't happen, like for whatever reason, right? Like maybe the flights have to get canceled. Like there's a million reasons why the trip could get derailed. I'm not going to then think back to these times when I felt so happy and feel sad because I felt happier before. I'll just be like, oh, that's too bad.
That's the thing that I think people, it's like, I was so stupid how I got so excited about that. And of course it didn't work out. And it just proves me right or serves me right to think I could have nice things in this life. It's like, what kind of attitude is that?
Right. Yeah.
The voice is tricky. Yeah. The voice wants to. It's not you who's saying that, it's the voice.
Yeah. And for me, the way I've always kind of dealt with bad things is just to put myself immediately into a place of gratitude. Like you can almost insulate and protect yourself from bad things by thinking, well, it could be worse. And I think this is something kind of permanently burned in my brain, because as a kid growing up, my parents bought me all sorts of books, like kids books. Like I had the whole Disney, book series. I had the Dr. Seuss books. And one of the books I had was called It Could Have Been Worse. And in this book, on one page or on one side of the page, there would be something really bad happening to this main character. And then on the other side, it would say, but it could have been worse. And then on the next side, something worse is happening. But it could have been. And so he keeps going down this spiral of like, it could have been worse. It could have been worse. And that's the truth. Like, it could be worse. So let's just be thankful that it's not. And then from that place of gratitude, we can find a lot of opportunity. I think it's really, really hard to see opportunity when you're in a place of negativity. And so, at least half of everything that I have now just comes from having my mind in the right place and being focused on the right things. And because I'm focused on those right things, then I can take actions in the right direction.
Absolutely. And one of the things that you just said reminds me a little bit of a secondary lesson I've learned from that. And it's almost like I had to stop just stopping it at it could be worse and really going deeper into the gratitude side of things, because if you think about it, saying it could be worse is still a comparison. So if what I'm trying to do, and at that point it was what I was trying to do, to stop comparing myself, it means I have to stop comparing myself to the people who have it much better than me and the people who might have it worse than me, because there's a deeper compassion of opportunity in there, which is genuinely just life. Pain in life is inevitable. And that's it. And suffering, though, is not necessarily inevitable. We further our suffering based on our outlook. And so in finding appreciation for the painful moments, there's room for transformation, there's room for growth, and there's room for deeper wholeness. It's something that it's a lifelong journey. You can become more and more whole. Like, you can just become a more robust, profound human. And that is the journey of becoming more whole. And so that's been a recent thing I've been thinking about, and trying to make it less about like what it could have been or what it couldn't have been, because it still kind of keeps it's a step in more growth, but it's like more in the domain still of what it would have been, versus like what is right now. And just like, that's the present moment. And so that's what I go into. Even if it hurts like a motherfucker, I'm going into it. I'm surrendering. And I'm just saying, like, is that all you got? No, not really. But like, just thank you. Thank you, genuinely. I have a vulnerable story, but I kind of feel like sharing it. And so in those moments.
Yeah, please do.
So I'm going through a breakup this past week. And today, and his birthday's in a couple days. And, we haven't spoken. It wasn't conflict driven. It was wholeness driven in a way that's what he needs to figure out for himself, it still hurts, especially when it's like long term. And it was, so I just mailed a letter to him before. That's what I was on a walk to do. And the first words of the letter is thank you. And I think he's going to open it and be like, I wasn't expecting that. But also I was, because I know this woman and that's her, like, to say thank you, the hard stuff. And the only way I can say that in all genuine meaning in my heart is to have, in the past week or plus, like, really just gone right into the pain. Like, look, I saw the fire, I saw the kindling, and then I saw it burst into the fire, and I was like, if I'm going to end this fire right now within myself, I have to run straight into it. And so I did. And I'm grateful to myself for that, because I've healed a lot from it. But yeah, like, those are the things that I'm not going to focus on, how it could have been. I did qualify it by saying, like, it wasn't conflict. I'm glad we didn't fight, but it doesn't matter how it happened. It just matters how I respond to it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And also kind of, it's awesome that that I think that's one of like the main lies that people in general tell themselves is I'm okay when we're not okay. And so I think that's awesome that you had that moment to kind of realize, like, I'm okay, but I'm not fully okay right now, and that's okay. Like, it's okay to not be okay.
Exactly. That was a statement. I set up my support system, and because I knew I didn't want to be isolating, which I didn't think I would, but just in case. And that was the statement that I found myself saying a lot. I'm okay and not okay at the same time, and that's okay.
Yeah. Well, and I love that you brought up too, like, a support system is so important. And there's no way I'd be here, like, super happy today without some type of support system. For me, that's my husband. And I feel very fortunate that I live with the person who's my support system. I also have other people who support me, though, too, and who I feel really comfortable.
System.
It's a whole system. And sometimes it takes telling 3 or 4 of those people in the system before I start to feel better from it. But there has never been a time when I've been going through something difficult where that support system hasn't added value and helped me to get through it. And I would say, it's hard for people to form support systems a lot of the time because it requires you to be vulnerable to some degree to even say, hey, I need support sometimes, and here's when I need support, and here's like what would be really helpful for me. And even that for most of us is really like scary to tell someone, for us to say like, I need help sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes we don't know what we need. Like sometimes, and that's okay. That's where wise compassion comes in handy. It's being able to, I learned the difference between idiot compassion and wise compassion. And we're all capable of both. So it's not calling a person an idiot. It's just idiot compassion would be, I tell you I got broken up with, and you'd be like, oh, well, he doesn't know what he's missing, or you're better off, or, like you're trying to make me feel better, but you're jumping to give this advice and you don't know what any of the situation at all. Like even my closest friends, I think sometimes it's like, you've only seen us together how many times, really? And we're best friends. So it's like, you don't know. But wise compassion would be what I offered myself and what I turned to some other people. And I learned like, oh, maybe I should be turning to wise compassion people. And they would offer like just the mirror, but it's not dusty. It's clear. And they can just hold it up to myself and I can see it. But I love the differentiation there because we all do it. And so we don't try to, we sometimes mean well, but can, again, like intention and action. It's like the intention might have been good, but what'd you do in the end? So it's an interesting thing. Do you mind? I kind of want to shift gears a little bit in conversation because, I'm interested to learn more about like your professional process also and the ways that you've kind of learned how to expand and become more engaged on social media and all that. But first I have a question. Yes. How do you define a champion?
How do I define a champion? That's a great question. I would say kind of off the top of my head, someone who's willing to fight and die for a cause. So whatever that cause is, in whatever way that you are willing to fight, to me, that's what a champion is. It's someone who doesn't just care about something. It's not just that you're passionate about something. It's that you're willing to fight against whatever obstacles, whatever resistance comes your way because you believe so much in that thing that you're trying to champion.
I love that. That's really cool. Very cool. And so is your journey with Champion Empire, do you think that sparked I've seen your TikTok and I know that you've amassed great following and viewership and all of that. And I'm not going to be like, how do you get that necessarily? Because it's different for everybody. And that's not even really what I care about as much. I think what I care about more is like, what was your learning journey with that? And what would you have told yourself, I guess? These are like multiple questions at the once and I don't care. Like what would you have told yourself at the very beginning of your journey with Champion? So I think that was 3 questions. First one would be, would you attribute the Champion Empire to your understanding of social media engagement? On your journey of social media engagement, what have you learned and what would you have told yourself? And I don't remember what the third thing was, but I'll just let you talk.
Yeah, absolutely. So to give context first, Champion Empire is only 6 months old. Okay. It's the newest company that I've formed with my partner, Jesse.
That's my brother's name. Oh,
that's awesome. Yeah, it's a good name. Jesse's an awesome guy. It's the first ever partnership I've ever had where it's one worked out well, period. But even more than that, like our partnership is the perfect, if I had to, write down what a perfect partnership would look like, we have that. And so I feel incredibly, incredibly blessed with that. Champion Empire came out of all of the other things that I've learned and built previously in the past 10 years. So my journey in social media really started with my first business, which was called 2K Diffuser Beads. And with that, I learned and made progress in marketing and in branding, simply because I wanted to make money, and this was the only free way that I knew how to do it. I didn't have money to pay for advertisements. Social media was that, and cold calling, which was the other thing that I could do that was free, and cold email marketing. So I was just
that's what I
found all the things I could do,
and I ignored all of them. So.
Yep, and I found all the ways I could find to market that didn't cost me money, and I put time and energy into those things. And based off what did work, what didn't work, I've always been someone who pivots very quickly towards the thing that's working the best, and I'll allocate my energy and resources away from the things that are not bringing me value. And so I did that. Built up my first business, started a second business when I got burnt out on that first one, which was graphic design and sticker printing. We also did some t-shirts, used social media for that as well, until I started my glass blowing business, continued to use social media, growing my glass blowing business. And then in the past year, when I hopped on TikTok and on LinkedIn, I really learned, I did learn a ton of new knowledge, but what I really learned was new ways that I could apply the knowledge that I'd gained in the past 10 years that I simply hadn't realized. Oh my God, this knowledge is valuable to all these different people and in all these different ways, because I was so much in a cocoon as like a solopreneur during all of those businesses that I just wasn't kind of aware. Like I was very aware within my space, but outside of my space was very unaware of the other options that were available to me, let's say, which brings me to answer the question, what would I have told myself? For sure, the number one thing that's helped me in the past year, and the thing I would recommend to my younger self, would be find a mentor or find a coach much earlier than I did. Because I went down so many, detours. Not that they were wrong paths to go, because I certainly learned something, but I took a lot longer than I had to take to get to where I am now, because I simply didn't have a good map. I didn't have a good guide. I didn't know what I was doing. And from that, I benefited, I'm sure, a lot of things. Like, I'm sure I learned a lot of things that I wouldn't have learned if I did have a guide or a mentor. But I think there's just so much value there that, as awesome as my life looks now, I think financially and network wise, it would be, 5 or 10 times greater if I'd have started 5 or 10 years earlier.
Wow, that's definitely huge. Interesting. What about like in terms of relating with people, like relating to masses, I guess, on and being able to maintain that? Because I mean, obviously I'm not really necessarily talking about like virality. I'm just talking about like how I mean, this is like, I'm literally asking for myself, I guess, but it's just something I'm beginning to learn. And I'm glad you said mentor, because I'm looking to is like, you have the answer and I don't. It's just kind of like, what am I trying to ask? I feel like I'm so in the beginning of my journey that I understand the facets of a business. I understand how to map them out. I understand how to feed into each of them. But some of it's more theoretical than it is application. And I'm still learning, like, okay, I know what the channels are. I have my channels, but like, how am I, driving ads to this specific segment and giving them a offer for this specific product, but not doing it too soon and not doing it like where they just don't know that I even sell stuff, Right. That's one thing. I feel like it was at a point for me last year that it's weird. I've had like kind of a bounce around. I started my brand in 2016 and went really hard on social media, just trying to create and learn along the way, not really knowing what I was doing. Mind you, I'm 24 now and I just turned 24. So I was in like my sophomore year of college. So I was very like just starting. And I began that. And then I got really disenchanted with social media and felt like it was just taking my time away from me, because the way I was using it, it was. And I took a hiatus for like 9 months and it felt really good. But then I was feeling like I miss this connection though, and I want to drive deeper into that. So then I got on every channel and like did the opposite. It's similar to what you're saying. It's like the knowing like what was wasting my time. I went deeper into not doing that thing, and then realizing that there was opportunity with like organic reach, and that I was missing that opportunity by being like my ego in the way. I decided to like throw that out the door and dive deeper into that. And so now I'm at a point where like I'm understanding that I need to segment all of my products, and I'm understanding how I can build like ideal client profiles and have that understood. It's just I'm missing this like, okay, and now there's a poster and you market it to this group of people. Like that's where I'm just, and it's not missing. I guess I should just say I'm emerging into that next.
Right.
part.
You're not fully past that point yet. That's kind of like where you're at right now in terms of like discovering which direction you want to go.
Yeah. And I'm getting really good at the engagement part, so much so that sometimes people are kind of like, where can we buy your art? So it's kind of like, oh wait, I'm not being clear enough. Obviously, if people are,
that's not the issue, actually. No, it's that people, you could be as explicit and clear as you possibly could. There's people who don't read on social media. When they're online, they look at pictures, they don't read. Like literally the answer to the question they're asking could be the first sentence of your caption.
So true.
They didn't read it, but they did take the time to like ask. So that's a pretty common behavior that I've seen.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. That makes me, and that's kind of makes a lot of sense. It's like, I personalized that. Now I'm realizing I made it, that must mean people can't understand. I must be doing something, but it's like,
no, it means that they wanted another thing it could mean is they wanted to engage with you, let's say as the artist, or if whoever's listening, if you're not an artist, as the brand owner or the person connected with the brand. But people, you guys, you forget how many people are scared to ask strangers questions or to talk to strangers.
Yeah.
And this is something I could observe really well when I met my husband. He was working at a smoke shop. And I would go in to work with him sometimes because I was doing freelance copywriting. So like my schedule was however I wanted to make it, and I missed him. So sometimes I would go hang out with him behind the counter at the smoke shop. And it was really fun because people would come in and I'd get to like watch these different people. And some people would come in and they make eye contact with you and they say, hey, how's it going? And they have a whole conversation. Other people will walk in, like they don't look at you. You as the store person are supposed to engage them. So you go, hey, how's it going? Is there anything I can help you out with? Are you looking for anything? And they're going to be like, thanks, I'm good. Or they'll say something really short. They still kind of won't look at you because they're scared to look at you. Like that's literally the dynamic there is people are scared of people on far too great a capacity on this planet. And so I think a lot of the time when people are commenting, how much is this? It's because they were scared to DM you and like be rejected, so to speak. And commenting and asking the question publicly makes them feel safer because they know, oh, this person's not going to be rude or mean to me.
Yeah.
Public facing. And the unfortunate fact is that a lot of artists are kind of rude to customers because at least this is something I've observed in every art industry. And it's not like artists do this. It's probably a portion of any type of, commerce industry. But sometimes people will feel like, look, I already put so much work into this art piece.
No, I made the thing.
You don't know the price. Don't even bother me. Like they can be very kind of touchy-feely. Like artists are very emotional.
Well, this one is sentimental to me, so it's like they don't care. They're buying something from you. Like you can tell the story without making it all about you.
Yep.
That's the thing is that I think that artists are a special breed of people that either have. I feel like I've met a lot of artists, okay? So I feel like I'm not trying to categorize people or set labels or anything like that. But a trend that I've noticed is that artists are either incredibly spiritually evolved, open, and just genuinely like compassionate beings, or they have a lot of difficulty allowing themselves to express those parts if they even are in tune with those parts at all. And a lot of the time it has to do with the ego, and a lot of the time it has to do with the things that you had just brought up, like and it doesn't really translate often over to great business practices, organizationally or customer relations wise. And that's one of the things I initially said when we first hopped on the call, was that I can tell, I think that's a similarity we have that is somewhat unique and rare, which I wish and I hope the more that we like speak on these matters, it becomes less rare, but feels rare that art and business actually go beautifully hand in hand. Like, really?
Yeah. I think, art can be a really solitary type of work. And so a lot of times I think artists can get really focused on their own emotions because they're using those emotions to create their artwork, that it's hard for them to make that switch then to like a customer facing or an energy that's about like someone else, not because they're selfish, just it's hard to make that switch sometimes of like really just focusing on yourself, then being like fully focused on someone else. And a lot of them just haven't had the feedback of how it's affecting them negatively to even be aware of it. Because generally what happens if like someone sends an artist a direct message and they're like, hey, how much is this piece? Or I think sometimes what irks them more is like, hey, I liked this piece a lot. Could I buy it for $100? And like the piece is really $5,000 and the artist feels like, what the fuck? I hope Kirsten's okay. And then in reality, like that person might be a customer at a $5,000 price point. Like they just don't know. It's very hard to be educated about the pricing of art unless you're really,
oh my God, especially it's just literally it is so subjective. I mean, it depends. It's the art market is, I mean, I could talk for hours about that. Like the art market itself is the most really like volatile and I think fascinating of all asset appreciation markets, because I mean, it's really like it's anyone's game. It could be a work that you think is just drop dead mastery, and the person could have sold it or not sold it at all, but been in like $100 or $400 or something. That is not a lot of money, okay?
No,
you see Jeff Koons out here like making something that he basically didn't even touch and sells for millions and millions of dollars per piece, and he's alive still. So it's like a really what business is like that? What industry is like that except for the arts? And I think that's fascinating. I hope I get to a point where, and I'm on my way in the beginning already, that I can just put whatever freaking number sounds right in my head, no matter what anyone has to say about it. And if you don't want to buy that, and I already have learned how to do that. It's like, if you don't want to buy it, then we don't have to do business together. But I hope you like my art, and I hope we can build a connection together. And even if you don't, like, I care about you as a person. But, when it comes to valuation, art is one of those things that, like, especially just like, don't get offended about it. It's just a thing. Like, you can shape how you want to present yourself into the world, what your clientele looks like. And if that person doesn't fit into that box, like, why are you angry at that person for that? Just they're human. Like
if someone comes to you as an artist and they say, hey, I like your work, and then you're nice to them, whether or not they buy from you within that conversation or transaction, like they're going to come back and figure out some justification to buy something. Yeah.
And I mean, I found that a lot. Like I've tried to be compassionate with people a lot of the time, especially when I was in school, because I would see people in the studio. I would see people, I'm carrying this giant sculpture, or I've got like a 5-foot painting, and they're like, whoa, I want that for my dorm room, bro. And I'm like, okay, are your parents loaded? Like, not happening. But I mean, if you're serious, we can have that conversation. And I have that right behind me is a painting, a commission I'm working on for a friend of mine who ended up going on to the NFL. And so
That's awesome.
It's the second piece he's bought for me. The first one was $75. This one is a lot more than that. And like, it's because we built a friendship, and I was like, yeah, like, you're a cool person. You know, I don't think it has to be like a personal offense whenever someone might offer you less than what you are worth. And I think it really is stemmed into insecurity around the idea of one's own worth, why someone would even snap in a way like that.
Yeah, or just like a deep frustration around, you know, lack of sales, or like being an artist can be a very frustrating thing, even just by nature of you creating the art. Like in glass blowing, your piece could break after you spending however many hours, like right at the end, the whole thing could shatter. So like that happens sometimes, and you have to be empathetic that like that's gonna be a rough day for that artist, and maybe not the best time to ask them about something.
Yeah, you learn a lot about yourself in those moments, and because I know I've had that happen, especially like in ceramics too. It's the same thing. Taking something out of the kiln is the very last step, and it's the most vulnerable step, because if someone else's work in the kiln could explode and hit yours and break. So it could be something that's, I didn't even do anything wrong or whatever, but it still broke. So how are you going to treat people? Are you going to throw a fit and make a scene in the middle of the ceramic studio and make that person feel terrible? Or are you just going to be like, these things happen. I can make anything again. It's okay, you know?
Yep.
And it really is okay, because what's the big fuss? Things could have been worse. It's just like that.
Yep.
Man, I love it. I feel like we're getting close to the end here. I want to make sure that we cover everything that.
Also, I don't know real quick if you knew this, but I did 4 years of wheel ceramics in.
That's awesome! No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it was like 3.5 years of wheel, and then I did 1 semester of like sculpture building, where we did was make. It was really cool. We learned about and like made teapots, but we made them not. We tried to make them look as much not like teapots as possible.
Yeah,
teapots are like this ancient, cool object that there's a lot of history in like art around, and there's been like gallery shows where they've had teapots from like hundreds of artists who are like super talented and famous. So it was really cool to just even be connected to that whole sphere of it.
I'm pretty sure that there was like a national show that was just that when I was doing ceramics, but I had just started, so I was like, I can try to build a teapot, but like I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. But I remember it being a thing. I remember looking through so many photos. So I'm wondering if we're talking about the same thing.
It totally could be the same thing. We were really fortunate to have like a kind of world-renowned ceramicist as our teacher, because the school I went to is called Lakeside School in Seattle. They built this like phenomenal ceramic studio, not like art studio. Like they had a separate, huge state-of-the-art studio just for ceramics classes.
The art studio, that is so cute.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. And they like provided all the clay for like, we paid like a $50, I think, supply fee. And that like,
get the hell out of here.
If you don't know and you're watching, ceramic, the clay is actually pretty expensive, especially like when you're making bigger pieces. It takes up a pretty good portion of the clay.
And if you don't reclaim your clay, you lose a good portion of it.
Yes, and if you don't know what reclaiming your clay is, this is like probably one of the most fun parts of ceramics. But you basically put all your old broken stuff in a big garbage bucket, you fill it with water, it it decomposes into like, or breaks down into mud, just like mushy, slushy mud.
Freezing cold.
Yeah, freezing cold. Yeah, like you've never felt cold on your hands until you've gotten them covered in clay. And then we had a fire drill that happened one time.
And there's a layer of water to get in. Wait, what were you saying?
I was saying we had a fire drill one time in ceramics class, and we all had to run out with like the clay still on our hands, and it was miserable. In Seattle, yeah.
God.
Yeah.
That sounds terrible. I mean, in Florida, you'd come back and it would all be completely cracked and dry in the beating sun. But Seattle,
I think definitely a couple people lost some less important pieces, but everyone else was like, okay, hurry, like cover it up with the plastic wrap. Ceramics has a lot of like interesting.
Oh my god! Spray some water. Don't put too much water. Put a little piece of paper in it. Don't wrap it in plastic too tight.
Like, make sure you score both pieces when you put them together, and then you put slip over it. And there's all these things that could go wrong in the arts.
Oh my god, completely. Ceramics is definitely the medium that taught me that, because I would say ceramics is the medium that taught me shit happens. Printmaking is the medium that taught me patience, and painting is the medium that taught me intention. Like, I never said this out loud. I just feel
that's cool. No, I like that.
Like, every mark really counts. Ceramics has memory. Clay, you could knock it over the table, be like, oh, slap it back, and it just goes right back. So, hi, Dom. Hello. CDK. That's what people call some people. But so I feel like those are all really valuable lessons, and art does that. Art teaches us lessons about
art. Teaches you guys. It teaches you things you can't learn other places, which is why, even though people ask me, they're like, so like, where do you spend your time? You've got like this glass blowing business, you make content, you do coaching, and I spend, very little amount of time blowing glass right now, but I do try and do it. I try and do it every day. That doesn't happen, but I get, some glass blowing in a couple times per week, not because like I need to make money from that business anymore, but because it is so soothing. I'm learning in a different way than I learn when I'm, in Zoom conferences, when I'm on Clubhouse, when I'm, learning from other people directly. And that's something that I think, no matter whether you think you're good at art or bad at art, like, you'll learn something from going through the process of art.
Absolutely. And it takes a lot, especially the mediums that are higher labor, like glass blowing or ceramics. Particularly glass blowing, though, it takes so much patience and just perseverance. Like, you have to just keep going back and back and back, and like, you're not going to get it right. It might take years to be able to actually get to a certain point that you're like, okay, I really understand this. But if it's something you love, like, you owe that to yourself to do that. I'm just remembering there's this this TV show that I saw that it might have been Oregon. I don't remember if it was Seattle, but they had like a whole glass blowing.
Blown Away on Netflix. Season 2 coming out this January. No, seriously though, season 2, I think it's airing like tomorrow or something.
Are you serious? Because I loved that. I was like obsessed. I watched every episode. That is
cool. Well, the second season's coming out. Yeah, and I'm not friends with, but I know of several of the artists on this season because they're actually big in the lamp work community. So I do something called lamp working, which
I've always wanted to design a lamp. Like, that is one of my goals.
So it's funny. You probably can't make a lamp, or like, it'd be very difficult to make a lamp with lamp working. I'd have to look up where the name came from, probably because classically they made, I would imagine, the stands of the lamp with it. But lamp working, you have kind of like a tabletop torch that is secured to your bench, and then the flame is just shooting out, and you're doing the work like in the flame.
That's why it's called lamp working, because it's well, I don't know that that's why it is called, but it makes sense. It's like a lamp. It's shaped. It looks like like a lamp of fire. Like,
exactly. Versus so the other type of glass blowing is either called soft glass or furnace work or hot shop work. There's a bunch of different terms. Flame working is another thing that would be referred to kind of like what I do. But there's a lot of artists that do both, because the skills, while they don't directly transfer, like generally if you're good at one type of glass blowing, you can pick up the other kind more quickly, because you've got kind of like that muscle memory and development that you need, and you understand some of the concepts. And so there's a bunch of artists that I became familiar with through lamp working who also happen to do hot shop stuff. And they got invited onto the season. And so it's pretty cool just to see even like the industry that I've been a part of, which has been really segmented because it's mostly been focused on like pipes and cannabis, start to get like absorbed and like merged with this other truly art world.
too.
Yeah,
Cool.
absolutely. Yeah, it's like all these different things kind of merging together in this really beautiful way where they've been separate for such a long time. So it's really cool to be.
And they're so old, like especially glass blowing. Like it's such an old practice. The idea that it's like, I mean, really, remember the fad of the beginning of like cooking competitions becoming a thing. Like we had cooking shows like on Food Network, but then the competition aspect, and now there's like
the Health Kitchen days and like all the shows that
and now started. It's like we're beginning to see that with art, and it's really cool because we should like these are practices that so many people like have devoted their lives to for so long, like, and so many people are fascinated by it. So that's really cool. So would you say that's a goal that you have for yourself to compete on something like that, or is it like not as much something that you're into?
Yeah, I actually don't have like any artistic goals at the moment. Like I have zero goals as an artist other than that I, you know, for the rest of my life have freedom to make the art pieces that I want to make.
The ultimate goal, really.
Yeah. So I'd rather like have the ability and freedom, whether that's time or financial or both, to make any idea that pops in my head more than I'm interested to like be on a show or meet a certain person. So like, honestly, I'd love to help promote the Netflix show. Like I'd love to do a deal promoting the Netflix show more than I'd love to be on the show itself.
That's cool. Well, yeah, because you definitely have that marketing side of you. Would you say that it's something that is natural for you and like is a natural tendency that you're drawn toward, or would you say it's like a skill that you acquired because you realized it was in part like a necessity for the journey that you were taking?
It's much more kind of like natural desire that I developed through heavy amounts of reading when I was young. Like that, it is so clear in my mind that is why I love marketing, is because I love words. I fell in love with words and their power to make me feel things at such an early age that as soon as I figured out I could make money doing something in that space, I was like, this is the thing for me. Like, this is so cool. I can figure out which words I need to use to make people feel this way, and I'll get compensated for that. Because that was the thing I just, was trying to figure out how to do my whole life anyways, is like, what do I need to say to get people to get me, or to get people to like me, or to get people to want to listen to me? And that's literally all we're ever trying to do with a brand or a business or our marketing is, how do I get people to listen to me, to pay attention to me, to like me in my business, to want to be involved with what I'm doing? So that just came from like natural desire that I've had pretty much my whole life.
I love that. Well, so what have you learned? How do you get people to listen, to buy? I don't remember the things you list, to buy. Like, what are some of the things that you've picked up on? Because that's been a huge challenge for me. I would say for me, marketing has been more of I'm a curious learner. I try to keep it in that headspace, but like, I really like, it's just like not my jam and butter. Like there's so many other things I would prefer, but I take the time to do it because I know it's important and I value it as a skill. Absolutely. But like big picture dream, I won't be the person that's like on the front end doing it, like, and I know I can get to that.
Totally.
Like lots of companies and people do that, but that's not where I'm at now. So it's just like, I have to just have grit through it, and I'm learning valuable lessons too.
Yeah, I would say focus on the part of marketing that you actually enjoy the most. And this is advice I give to everyone of like, marketing has different components. There's the content creation side, and then there's the, let's call it community engagement side. Now, personally, I do enjoy making content. Like I like the ideation part of it. I like the planning part of it. The actually making or like filming of a video, not so much. Like it's really not my jam. I don't enjoy being a photographer or a camera person. I like coming up with the idea and like I like seeing the end result, but I don't enjoy, like, I'm not going to be someone who spends 8 hours editing a video. Like never. I'll never do that ever. Unless obviously, like, not never ever, but like that's not something I'm going to spend my time doing.
Yeah,
Whereas someone else,
self-awareness, you know.
Yeah, for someone else who likes it, like I have friends who really enjoy editing, and when they're like, I'm having so much fun, and I don't realize I spent 4 hours editing until I have something else I have to do, and then I'm like, oh no, I spent all my time editing. But they're not saying, oh no, I spent all my time editing because they don't like it. It's actually because they do like it, and so. Right. For someone like that, I'm like, great, you should spend most of your marketing time making the perfect piece of content. Other people who like me, I don't really enjoy the content making side nearly as much as I enjoy the community engagement side. For marketing, I spend way more time just talking to people. And in terms of art, I think this is one of the best ways to build like a really great loyal fan base, to get your customers to buy at least 2 times as much of your art, like at least, if not 5 times throughout a year, is just having conversations with them and making the best way you can do marketing is to make other people feel important, make other people feel significant, which is, I would say, different than important. Yeah. Give them energy that they're looking for, whether that energy is empathy, whether that energy is enthusiasm, whether that energy is solidarity. Like there's a lot of different types of energy that people are looking for from either a person or a conversation. Yeah. And different language will fit each of those things. Like there's different words you're going to use in an empathy driven message than in an enthusiasm driven message, even different emojis that you might use. Oh, that's another thing is, even if you feel like you're a serious business person, which I used to think of myself much more seriously than I do now. But even if you're like, look, I'm a serious business person and serious business people don't use emojis. There's a reason emojis are a big deal. It's because they work to make someone read the words of your message through a certain lens. So when
I'll put an emoji in the subject line of an email, and I get more of an open rate whenever I do, because it stands out. You got a million emails, you don't want to read any of them, but then you see one sparkly twinkle and you're like, oh wait, what's this? And then you actually read it.
Yeah, well, and it's a visual key for how you like, our brain likes when we're told how to read things. And so when you read something that could be read in a sarcastic voice or a normal voice, like this is an issue I see a lot of people come across, is they're like, sarcasm doesn't transfer through like text communications. It's very hard to tell if someone's like making fun of you or just being sarcastic and trying to play a joke unless you know them really well. An emoji can solve that problem. Like you pick the right emoji, they're not confused about whether you're joking.
Emoji, they'll roll your eyes and you know they're rolling their eyes. Like or a laughing emoji, the rolling laughing. You just know.
Yeah, I think it's just a different form of communication that we haven't like fully realized the power around. As
I have, and you want to know why? This makes me so like, what the heck? My 5-year-old and 7-year-old cousin, literally at the beginning of I friended them on Facebook Messenger Kids, and I get so excited about this because it's like the future of the way they play games with each other. We play games through AR on our cell phone. Yeah. Like it's crazy. Yeah. But like my 5-year-old cousin, she doesn't know how to read or write. And so the beginning of the pandemic, she was sending me paragraphs of emojis, and she was about stories. And like I just put a couple of random ones, and she was like, I don't understand. I put like a celebration and she's like, is it a birthday? I don't understand. She like sent an audio dictate one. So it's like
totally
a whole paragraph, and she's like, I don't know how to read. I can't go to school. What does that mean? Are you celebrating? What is the birthday? I can't go to school. There's a pandemic. Like she didn't say pandemic, but it just made me laugh so hard. And that's the thing, is like, it's an actual, the way that she can open the game so fast. The setting is like, if we go on the same filter, we can play a game together. And so she's sitting there like, okay, let's do the hot dog one. And she's like already on it. And I'm like, which one's the hot dog one? Because there's no words. It's just like TikTok with the symbols of the effects. It took me forever to be like, if you don't know what section that effect is under, like good luck finding it.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah.
because everything and the pictures are so random. It could be like an
Yeah,
eyeball, like
I agree. I think the
like I'm confused.
the pictures on the TikTok effects or filters, whichever you want to call them, are like so not helpful to you.
Yeah.
Sometimes they are. Like sometimes I'm like, okay, that one is
Picture uploaded.
that one. Or like the bling one says bling, so like you know it.
Got
What it does. But all the other weird ones where it's like you know, like another weird half of a picture, like what does it do?
No, and some of them I don't know. I'm just like, my first ever TikTok was like, I didn't even realize I was recording. I was just looking at the camera like, what? Like how do they use this thing? And I found it back in the beginning of my drafts, and I was like, oh my god, I posted it because it was hilarious. But
yeah,
literally, like, it's insane. TikTok is one thing that's like, okay, do you know this? How do you avoid being shadow banned? And like, because I've had certain videos that I post, and then it feels like all of my engagement goes down so much. But sometimes, or like the not engagement, the reach, like some videos I've still not gotten like multiple thousands, but I've gotten multiple thousands. I just haven't gotten over like, I don't know, 5,000 or something like that. And so that might be I used a sound, that might be I duetted someone, it might be that it just like that just hit the right hashtag or whatever. But sometimes I'll like make a couple of posts and it'll be like 15 or 5. And I'm my goal is to get to 1,000 so I can start going live on TikTok. And I'm at 876 today.
Oh, you're close.
Getting close. And who knows? I'm thinking it's possible by the end of January. I engage multiple times a day on TikTok making posts. I comment back on every single person's comments. Sometimes I make videos to my comments. And so I feel like I am doing a lot of the right things, but you don't know what you don't know. So that's kind of why I'm opening up the floor discussion. I know that the biggest thing is consistency, and for me to just keep going because I'll learn the more I do. So I'm patient and I'm fine with that, but there's probably things that I don't know that I'm probably like making.
Yeah, there's not too much like it sounds like you've got it pretty down packed. Mm-hmm. People want TikTok to be this easy kind of puzzle that they can solve, and it's not that. Well, it's two things. One, the puzzle is really complicated. Two, it's not a static puzzle. The pieces are always changing. So like not only is the machine learning new things that then changes how and when people say the algorithm, that's what they mean. They mean the different layers and types of machine learning that exist. So not only is that changing constantly, but also the team at TikTok makes tweaks and adjustments to that code or like what's driving the machine learning or what it's telling the machine learning to like pay more or less attention to. So that's another factor. There's also the factor of human desire to watch certain types of content being very roller coaster-esque as well. So like I might be a huge fan of a show. Some days I don't want to watch it. Like, I don't know, some days I just don't want to watch something, right?
Sometimes the character's face almost annoys you. And then the next week you're like, oh, I love this show.
Yeah. So like there's that which like, happens in mass that we can't like see that or really measure it. Like we don't have softwares or tools designed yet as individuals. There might be some really big companies that do have different kind of like softwares that can tell a pulse of like where people's attention is at on the internet at any given time.
You can tell what a person looks at a screen by eye sensors. So there's people out there who really got it. Like
the data is being collected. Yeah.
And so that's one of the things. That was my whole fight with downloading TikTok in the beginning. I was like, I don't want them to have my data. And then I was like, don't they already have it? Like, and I'm just
everyone else at least are like all the apps have your data for the most part. So
data. And it's like the government definitely has the data. And do I trust them? No. So whatever. Like at least this can help me and not just like I'm not an anarchist, but I'm just saying like these are things that are already in the works and are so out of our control. The only thing that's in our control is how, just like everything in life, it's like all the
Our
same
actions.
is completely out of control. The only thing we have is our response to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing I would like encourage people to do whenever they're trying to grow on a platform is like, yes, look and see what's working for other people, but also come up with your own idea for what you think is going to work. And as long as you base it on a reason, like you have a likelihood of it working. Now, whether that likelihood is high or low is going to depend on the idea itself and your execution of it. But there's a million things that have not been done on TikTok, on LinkedIn, on even Instagram, which is super saturated. It's been around like one of the longest. There's still things that no one's ever thought to do yet on Instagram. So like be adventurous and be brave and try something new.
Too. So that's another thing. It's like, and the people who are looking, their interests are going to change. So it's okay to try new things because you just never know what's going to work. Yeah, you know, Absolutely. It's interesting. Like I opened the app TikTok earlier, and the sound, I saved it immediately because it was like someone's like had made a sound that was something like, I don't want to have a niche. I just want to do random things because I like to do random things. I would also like to have a following that doesn't leave when I try something new. Like that was the song.
Yeah,
and
that's perfect.
Interesting. But like I like the message of that because I've like, for example, I'll send you a picture of the drawing I'm looking at. I made a drawing of myself and how I didn't really think about like how do I portray myself on the internet. I thought about it more so like, what are my natural facets? Because I realized that I'm a very multifaceted person. So I made a drawing called Flip the Script, and it's like a comic with 16 different Karinas, and they're all just like me sitting naturally, like thinking and meditating on like, who am I and what do I do? And I have hoped to get to a point because I like the drawing and I think it communicates well who I am in an authentic way. I want to get to a point where my channel, like you look at any of the channels, YouTube or, you know, Instagram or whatever, and what you see is like, if it's a grid of 16, you see one of each of those of me, and you're getting the picture. Like, and I think it's a very smart way. And I'm just kind of like sharing this idea with you because it's been hard for me to execute on, but I'm getting there. Like I'm seeing, it was at a point where I realized in self-awareness, I'm sharing only information and I'm a beautiful human being that has all of this personality and I'm not giving them pictures of me at all. And I was like, why am I doing that? That's not who I am. And so I realized like, oh, okay, I need to be more like myself. Like I was too in that headspace of what do other people want?
What do they want me to be for them? Yeah,
exactly. And like I listened to something earlier, and this is like a lesson we're all learning so much all of the time, but I heard a talk that I was listening to, and it was just a conversation, but she said, and I wrote it in the letter that I had sent too, because I liked it that much. And it was just like, show me your truth and I will be fascinated by you, no matter what that truth is.
That is so how I feel. Oh, that is such a good, that is like in essence who I am. This is fun too, because like the universe works in everything's become close. The universe works in mysterious ways. But just before I came on here, not like immediately before, but like, I don't know, 30 minutes before I was doing some research on TikTok. That's what I always say when I'm looking at videos, just like watching TikTok. I'm doing research. Okay, I'm a marketer. This is research. Count it. But I saw this video from a beautiful, I imagine she's probably same age as you, like early 20s, beautiful woman who is talking about how she has autism. And she was saying like, I don't know if like this is an autistic thing or like what this is, but I just noticed that like anytime someone, talks about their face and like anytime I see a face, I'm like, that is a good face. Like, wow, people are beautiful. Like what what an awesome face. And when, she hears people talk about like, oh, I don't like my acne, or I don't like my eyebrows or my lips or my nose, she's just like, but why? It's such a good, like, it's such a beautiful face. Like, why don't you like it? And I think that same thing is true of like how society has kind of, it's like a great microcosm for society in the world of like, society tells us that our face, our fill in the blank is not good enough.
Exactly.
When in reality, it's perfect and it's beautiful and it's amazing.
Yeah. And it's like, from a marketing perspective, you definitely know that there's a reason why we are convinced that we're not good enough. And the reason is, if you can convince someone they're not good enough the way they are, you can sell them a product or service.
Yeah, they'll buy something to fix that. Yeah.
But the thing is, like, it's stupid because people, and it's just overall stupid because you're selling them products that destroy the environment based on the idea that we don't have enough. We're destroying the only thing we have, which is our bodies and our environment, when you also can sell things by just being like, you're beautiful and I want you to be happy. Like, you really can sell stuff like that. It's not like, you don't have, it doesn't have to be the way that it is. It's just that we're so out of balance that, it's interesting that it kind of leads to that, because last year my one word intention was was wholeness, and I found wholeness quickly within that and practiced and understood it, and now I'm like, I'm a whole being, dang it. And my intention is
never going back.
Exactly, never going back to that. I'll have moments, but I'll be like, that voice is so loud right now. It's not me, and I know it, and I'll never forget that lesson. I unlearned that lesson, and then I relearned that lesson, and I'm not going to unlearn it again. Short of amnesia, I'm not unlearning it. And who knows, like, whatever, if that happens, that happens. But balance is my intention moving forward, because I'm realizing, dang, I'm so whole that I got all these scripts. I've got all these facets to me, all these different personalities. I don't want to just have a niche where I'm trying to, and niches can be really great, by the way, and I can have multiples of them. I'm just saying, like, I don't want to have to pigeonhole myself into one thing so that I'm changing who I am for you. I want to be authentic in me, and that's going to require an intense challenge of just trying to get to balance. And maintaining it is never going to probably happen. It's just the goal of getting there is what I'm focusing on. And so to me, a lot of that translates over to the social realm too, because we have to learn how to, or I guess I should say the digital realm of social media, because we have to learn how to balance that, both within the digital realm, balancing across the platforms, but also just like balancing between this and all of this, because there were definitely days where it's escaped me and I felt like I'm just I'm texting and sending all these messages to people about all of this art that I create, but when's the last time I painted?
Yeah, you feel like you're doing a lot of work without actually accomplishing.
Yeah, sometimes. But then I surrender and I realize, like, everything builds on itself, and it's okay. And it's about just not judging it and just doing what I also, at some point in my wholeness journey, stopped doing things I didn't want to do at all.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I realized, like, I still got everything done. I just enjoyed budgeting when I did. I just enjoyed going to the grocery store when I did. And instead of, like, having the turmoil of, I don't want to be doing this, I should be doing that, like, I just did the thing I wanted to do instead. And when I felt like returning to the other thing, I did.
Yep.
But thank you. I think that does deserve a little. I hope that we all.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, a lot of people, that's like another, I think, category of the lies that people tell themselves would be around, I'm happy, like this, or this is what I chose or wanted to do. Let's be honest. Is it really what you chose or wanted to do, or out of the options you thought were available to you, it's the thing that you wanted to do out of those instead of out of all the things that you really wanted to do, but you're telling yourself you can't do because of X, Y, and Z. And that's something that also for me has like led to an incredible amount of happiness, was thinking about like, what are the things that after I do that activity, I feel good, whether I feel proud of myself, whether I feel like I gave value to someone else, whether I feel like I worked hard, like for whatever reason, I feel good after that. And great, I'm going to do those activities. And if I do something and afterwards it makes me feel bad, I'm either going to cut it out completely or limit. Like if it's something that I have to do, I'm just going to really limit it and be very intentional about how often or how much time I'm spending doing that thing that afterwards I don't feel great about having done it. So for me, like that might be even like eating a lot of desserts, right? Mm-hmm. Like I love eating a lot of desserts, but to be honest, afterwards, usually I don't feel so great because like I ate too much of like my body can't handle very much sugar or like dessert type things. My taste buds can handle way more than my.
I know. I feel that. And you know, one thing I don't really know that this is a correlation, but I have a hunch. I notice the nights that I eat more sweets, at least like right before bed, I have bad dreams.
Oh, interesting. That totally could be a thing because we're super affected. Like our dreams are super affected by what we do kind of like right before bedtime.
And since it really affects like our just brain, our body system, like sugar is a drug. So it's like, you know, I've started doing practices more like, okay, don't wait until 1 a.m. to get the ice cream. If I want the ice cream, I'll at 9, and then I'll feel a little bit better, you know?
Yeah, I mean, little things like that, just like having discipline and building the discipline and being intentional. Yeah, it's so valuable.
So valuable. And it's one of the things that I hope, and I believe everyone truly deserves. Like I have learned too that like boundaries are an ultimate compassion tool. Like I didn't know that before. I always felt bad about setting a boundary because I didn't want someone to feel like they couldn't be safe around me. When it's quite the opposite. I was making myself unsafe in moments that, you know, not necessarily dramatic, like physically safe, but then sometimes, like I was not as safe as an individual in what I knew I needed because I didn't know I needed it because I was totally out of tune with that. But it's all a process, like becoming very in tune. And, you know, I described you as like high achieving or I described both of us in that way, but I don't think that's the right word. I think it's more like just aligned, just an aligned being, because we look at high achieving or success and we think of it as like tangible achievements, but that's not really what I mean it as. I really mean it more in a way that's like life.
I love that word that you used, aligned. That is, I think, very accurate towards like how I think about success. It's not a place you get to or a kind of thing you achieve. It's more a state of being. Like you can't have success. I think you can only be successful because if you're not doing something in a moment, like you're not being successful. Now, it doesn't mean you're doing work. Like I think you being at the beach in the moment with your family, like that's a form of success. But it is really about like aligning your actions with your intentions, with your values, with your purpose. Like when all of those things are aligned, you are successful. So that's an awesome way to put that.
Yeah, aligning your intention, values, purpose, and action. That one's that last one that really brings
boom. Yeah.
and you know, I love the way you said that too, because in Italian, which I am Italian or half, and I speak Italian. But in Italian, the language, you have a distinction between that. There are two, and a lot of languages are like this. But you have there's essere and avere, and so essere is to be, and avere is to have, and we distinct.
Spanish has that too.
Exactly, but English doesn't, and it's like, you know, certain things. It's like I have a need, But I like something that's based off my being would be like if I'm going somewhere, or like I will go there. So it's
Yep.
just kind of like the distinction is important because we don't have achievement. Or I guess you do have achievement, but you aren't like I don't know. It's hard because the way I'm trying to describe it is like not
Analogous kind of.
well, yeah, as well as I'm trying to make it because it is, but what I'm trying to get at is that like technically we do have achievements and we can be an achieved person or an accomplished person,
Right.
But what really makes us that is our own being and our understanding of the inherent value of our being and what we bring. And in the society in the world that is very westernized and has been like colonized in this way, like it's not something that it's not in our language. And if it's not in your language, how, and that's me being a little bit metaphorical, but it's not like if we don't have the tools of communication for these ideas.
No, this is
how are we supposed to understand?
Yeah, this is such a great, again, a whole discussion topic. But I
feel like I hope I'm not talking you off too much because we've definitely gone over the allocated.
Yeah, no, I think this is a really great concept and one that I have an interesting tie to. From last year, I was invited to be a part of this learning cohort, and we all kind of went through. I think it was like 8 people, possibly 10 people, where we went through this. I think it was an 8-week kind of program together where we really explored like what are our unique gifts, how are we sharing those unique gifts with others, and it was just a really cool experience. But one of the people who was in that cohort, his name is 4 Arrows, and he is a very, very highly accomplished hypnotherapist, and has written many, many amazing books on like the indigenous language and like totally what you were talking about. But there is this fact that words hypnotize us. Like words do hypnotize people, whether you're aware of it or whether you're not aware of it. And there's even kind of like structure around what makes language hypnotizing or what hypnotizing language is or consists of. And so that's kind of part of like what we're talking about is not only how people perceive themselves fitting into some of these words, but also do the words even allow for someone to express themselves fully to the way that they were kind of born or created versus just the way that we're given to express ourselves. Like the only tools that most of us grow up knowing to express ourselves are like speaking, writing. That's, maybe like some noises, like that's pretty much it. That's what we got. Art, like there's a couple other things like running, like exercise. I think movement would be like a form of expression.
Been brought up in a place where the arts are respected, and so that opens the doors a little bit. Even writing, there's only certain types of writing that's like largely
right.
Like poetry
that makes sense.
It's not as like it's like what are you talking about with the mumbo jumbo? I don't know. What are you getting at here? Or songwriting, it's like stop making all that racket. Like do your math homework. We're very closed off to the spiritual side of what art can bring. So if you, which a lot of people were raised in settings where that was either just not accepted or it just wasn't like readily available in school or whatever, then you aren't in tune with it unless you're just one of those people like I was. Like it's random, I think, but also not. It makes tons of sense, I guess, because it's weird. And you'll know what I'm saying once I say it, that I was born and raised in this tiny island, like middle of nowhere. It's literally called the Forgotten Coast of Florida. And it's really cool. And I got that opportunity growing up that a lot of older people talk about with like, my curfew was the street lamps and when the mosquito man was bug spraying the air, we put our shirt over and we ran home. Like that was my curfew. And
totally.
We were there all day long. We were out in the trees. We were getting dirty in the sand and the mud and all of that. And I would go in the sand and mud and I would build sculptures, and I would paint with water on the sidewalk and those kinds of ideas. And it's like being able to experience that. I just was so obsessed with the arts, and my upbringing maybe didn't have it as an institutionalized thing, but my parents made room for that, and I am really
That's
grateful
awesome.
for them to have done
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Yeah, okay, I got you. Honestly, I'm feeling very content with our conversation, if you are at this point, because I think we've shared so much with one another, and we can always talk again. That's so beautiful.
Yes. This is just the first of many conversations to come. And that's one of the things that I like, that gets me excited about social media and like why I put time and energy into it is I'm starting relationships now that I could have the entire rest of my life.
Yeah.
Like that's such a cool concept to me, because I'm not one of those people where I've got a friend that like we met in 5th grade and we've been friends forever. And so I think right now I'm forming those like forever friendships that I'm going to have, long into the future. And I hope that this is one of them.
Oh, that's so sweet. Like, seriously, I really appreciate that. And I love that. And it's better now that you've started forming this relationship and these kinds of relationships, because you are whole and it's more meaningful that way.
Absolutely. No, I'm very grateful and blessed to be here.
Yeah, I'm so grateful and blessed to have the conversation with you. And yeah, let's definitely talk soon. I'm sure I'm going to have questions for you about marketing at some point here and other things as well. So I hope that you have a nice little break before your other call, and let's talk soon, okay?
Yeah, absolutely. I hope everyone watching this has an amazing day. You can reach out to me or Carina anytime. We love talking with you guys, and I've got nothing but love for you.
Absolutely. Thank you all for watching. If anyone's still on here, we appreciate you sticking with us this far.